How does a Filipino fishing ground become a nature park under someone else's flag? From weather station to fisherman's shelter to nature reserve, the labels change, but the goal stays the same: permanent control. Episode 4 explores China's 2025 proclamation of a marine nature reserve within the Philippines' lawful maritime entitlements at Scarborough Shoal. For nearly 40 years, expansion in the South China Sea has come wrapped in soft language. A weather station on a remote reef, a shelter for fishermen. Now at Scarborough Shoal, Bajo de Masinloc, Scarborough to Filipino fishers. A brand new label, a national nature reserve. Different words, same trajectory. What looks like conservation on paper is, in practice, a way to harden control over a traditional Filipino fishing ground. One that an international tribunal has already said must not be blocked. In September 2025, China's State Council announced a new designation, the Huangyan Island National Nature Reserve. On paper, it sounds benign. Official language speaks of protecting fragile marine ecosystems, standardized management, scientific research and monitoring, and public education on environmental protection. It reads like any other conservation document, but Scarborough Shoal does not sit off the coast of China. It lies about 120 nautical miles from Luzon, well inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, and more than 500 nautical miles from Hainan. What Beijing calls a nature reserve sits on top of another country's fishing ground. On paper, it's protection. On the water, it's a blockade. Since 2012, Chinese government vessels have controlled the mouth of the lagoon at Scarborough. Filipino fishermen who once sheltered there now describe a routine of radio warnings telling them to leave, large ships blocking their path, and in recent years, water cannon blasts aimed at Philippine boats near the shoal. The people being kept out of this new nature reserve are the same communities that have fished here for generations. The nature reserve story also hides an uncomfortable truth. Much of the damage at Scarborough Shoal was caused under China's watch. For years, giant clam harvesting and destructive methods, propellers chopping into coral, heavy gear dragged across the reef, have shredded the lagoon's ecosystem. Marine scientists estimate that hundreds of hectares of coral and habitat around the shoal have been severely damaged, with knock-on effects for fish stocks and for Filipino fishers who depend on Scarborough as a traditional fishing ground. The same state now claiming to protect Huangyan stood by as large-scale extraction tore up the very reef it says it is saving. So why call it a national nature reserve? The label does more than sound good abroad. It creates a legal-sounding excuse to keep others out. Under this narrative, any foreign boat, even a small Filipino fishing banca, can be painted as a threat to the environment. Blocking them is no longer framed as an illegal blockade, but as enforcing reserve regulations. In this way, brute control is dressed up as orderly, rules-based management. What international rulings have called unlawful interference is rebranded as environmental law enforcement inside a Chinese protected area. But the legal reality hasn't changed. In 2016, an arbitral tribunal in The Hague ruled that Scarborough Shoal is a traditional fishing ground for Filipino, Chinese, and other regional fishers, and that China's blocking and dangerous maneuvers against Philippine vessels there are unlawful under the law of the sea. The tribunal also rejected the so-called 9-dash line as having no legal basis to override the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. No new label, whether security zone or nature reserve, can erase that decision. From Fiery Cross to Mischief to Scarborough, the wording keeps changing, but the direction stays the same. First, a weather station, then a fisherman's shelter, now a national nature reserve. Each soft phrase leads to harder facts on the water: runways, radars, blockades, and the slow exclusion of Filipino fishers from their own traditional grounds. Environmental language should never become camouflage for occupation. Bajo de Masinloc, Scarborough, is not a Chinese nature park. It is a lifeline for coastal communities in Luzon, and a test of whether law or labels will define the future of the West Philippine Sea. When we hear new promises of protection or reserve in disputed waters, we need to remember what has already happened at Scarborough and look beyond the label to the reality on the sea. In episode 5, we look at what happens if Scarborough is built up next and how that could complete a triangle of bases reaching toward Luzon in the Bashi Channel. As the sun sets, the BRP Sierra Madre stands firm. Stay informed. See you next watch.